Okay, hello everyone, and welcome back to the seventh episode of the Babylon Business Bootcamp webinar series. My name is Tom Dolan, and today's topic is leading during difficult times. Although this is a topic just for today, we here at the IDA know that our business owners in the town are and have been actively leading during this difficult time. Joining us today is a familiar face. We're happy to have her back, Christina Loja, Certified Business Advisor with the Farmingdale Small Business Development Center. She teaches the business basics and business plan workshops for the Farmingdale Small Business Development Center. She has a master's degree in secondary education and was a New York State certified high school business teacher. She has a Bachelor of Science degree in marketing, communications, and 30 years of experience in many different facets of business, including human resources, payroll, customer service, retail, purchasing, and marketing. Well, welcome back, and thank you for joining us again, Christine.
Thanks so much, Tom. So I'm really excited to talk to you today about this because I think leading is difficult any time of the year, but especially when there's what we've gone through with the pandemic. It's been really difficult. So I'm a John Maxwell certified trainer, and so what that does, it allows me to take some of John Maxwell's books and really teach. I do lunch and learns and courses on them. So John's book, John Maxwell is a leadership expert. If you go on Amazon, he's written, over 70 books on leadership and personal and professional development. So what I'm going to talk to you today is called, the name of the book is Leadership Gold. And it's, so I took some of the chapters from the book that really are good for this type of topic, leading during difficult times. So let me get right to the presentation. So I'm going to share my screen with you so that you can see.
Great.
So just let me know if you can see it. Can you see the screen?
Yes. Yep.
Okay. All right, so let's get right into it. Okay. So there's a copy of the book if you want to get it out. So leading others isn't easy, right? And during hard times, it requires a new level of leadership. So they call it leadership goals because he shares his nuggets of knowledge from being a great leader for, when the going gets tough. And he's, again, been in the leadership field for over 40 years. So I like this quote from Rudy Giuliani, who said, when the right person is the leader, he does even better during tough times. So let's see, what that really means. So it's been said that a wise person learns from his mistakes. A wiser person learns from others' mistakes. But the wisest person of all learns from others' successes. So really, what does that mean? So I think the way the COVID-19 shutdown went down, it was so abrupt. I mean, one day you were open and the next day you weren't. So it really sent business owners and business leaders scrambling on what to do. But those that were able to pivot successfully by seeing and following other businesses' successes, what they were doing successfully, I think created a foundation that they could build on. So so I'll just, use the restaurant example. So restaurants that were able to quickly go to takeout and delivery or curbside pickup, or go to outside seating when that was, when that came up. Those businesses that were able to do that were successful, and that kind of spread that was the thing to do. But leaders and business owners that had more of an ego trip and said that they knew it all, they had the most difficult time, right? Because they thought that they knew it all. But when you're going through difficult times as a leader, you really have to learn. And so in order to learn, you have to admit that you don't know what to do. So you don't have all the answers. So I think difficult times are not the times to reinvent the wheel. If you see what's working, then do it. It's not the time for criticizing people or pointing fingers. It's really about sharing and celebrating successes, even when they're small. So today's focus is going to be about how to lead yourself, how to handle defining moments. And those defining moments are not your successful moments, but maybe the tough times. How to handle criticism, because it is going to come your way, or if it has, if it hasn't yet, it will. How to deal with reality. That's your first responsibility. And how to be a great leader worth following. Really about human resources, how to keep your people happy, how to deal with some of the tough things that you've had to deal with regarding staffing. So that's what we're going to talk about today. So keys to leading yourself is really about self-discipline, seeking accountability, learning followership, and practicing patience. So I thought each of these could actually use their own slide. So let's talk a little bit about self-discipline. So John says that we judge others according to what they do, so their actions, right? Oh, look what that person, they said they were going to do that and they didn't do it. So we judge them by that. We're like, oh, well, they're not trustworthy. But we judge ourselves by our intentions, what we plan to do, right? So we plan to go to the gym. We plan to take a walk every day. We plan to go on a diet. And then when we don't do those things, we kind of give ourselves, oh, well, I'll try it next week, or I'll do it next month, or whatever. So we kind of give ourselves, a pass. But when it comes to dealing with others, we judge them more harshly. So self-discipline is really doing what you say you're going to do to yourself. So basically, I'm going to go back one more time. So discipline is really giving yourself a command, and then following through on it. It's doing things even when you don't feel like doing them. Like, who likes to clean the bathroom, right? That's not my favorite thing to do, but I do it anyway, and I have to tell myself to do it. Um, it's paying your bills. Does anybody like to pay their bills? I don't think so, but you have to do it. So you tell yourself, on Tuesday I'm going to pay the bills because the bills are due. So it's the highest form of leadership, and your character, who you are, will show up in how you lead yourself. So if you don't have self-discipline, it's going to be a very tough road for you. Um, so the second thing is seeking accountability. So John says leaders who fail ethically think that it can never happen to them. Well, if I just do this, it's okay. I'm not going to get caught, or, it's not going to happen to me. But, you know, people who lead themselves know that they can't trust themselves. And, so what happens is you have to get, when you're struggling, you have to get advice early before you take action, because then you'll be less likely to get off track. So talk to people that can be an accountability partner for you, other trusted people that are close to you. They say, hey, am I on the right track? What do you think I should do here? And if you set goals for yourself, make sure that they're accountable. I mean, that you're accountable to them to make sure that you follow through. So the other thing is to learn followership. Now, I never thought of this. I'm like, what do you mean followership? So good followers usually make good leaders. And why is that? He said John says only a leader who has followed well knows how to lead others well. So leaders who have never submitted to authority tend to be prideful, unrealistic, rigid, and autocratic. So that's the reason, because good leaders can connect with their employees because they've been in their shoes, right? Think of, have you ever watched Undercover Boss? That's like one of my favorite shows. Like, I always cry at the end because it's just so amazing. But, many bosses, leaders, right? They discover things that they didn't know about because they are so far removed now from the front lines that they're out of touch with what's really going on. And the shame of it is that they had to go undercover to find that out. Um, but really being a good follower. Business owners that rebelled against the CDC guidelines or the New York State or local county guidelines when reopening, they were not good followers, right? You go into a store, you didn't see, sanitation and cleaning going on. You didn't see the employees wearing masks. So it really was to the detriment of the business because they weren't good followers. So that's really something to take note of if that is your something that you need to work on. And of course, practicing patience. So a lot of leaders, they're very busy, they're in a rush, they have a lot on their plate, a lot of things to do, but you have to slow down to connect to your people. So in this case, I'm going to talk about your people being your staff. So the business owners that reopened after the shutdown without preparing their staff. Now, I'm talking about training. I'm talking about this is the new normal, guys. We have to do things very differently, and I need you to be on board with this. So, that kind of training, that kind of preparation takes a lot of patience. And if you don't have patience as a business owner to do these things, it really put your business at a disadvantage from the get go. And so practicing patience when you don't want to be patient, when you don't feel like patient, you just want to get things done. I know what that's like, but you needed to take a step back and retrain your employees, re-outfit your store, put up different signs. I mean, all that stuff required preparation, and to prepare, that required patience. So, employees really suffered at because if you didn't take the time to train them, they didn't know what to do. And that was basically, a reopening nightmare. Because when your customers went into the store, they got a different experience because it was inconsistent. Employees didn't know what to do, didn't know how to respond to people that weren't wearing a mask. They didn't wear a mask themselves, so it caused so many problems. So practicing patience is just really, really so important. Um, so let's move on a little bit to defining moments. So when we think of defining moments, we think of like the great things, right? Maybe the time you get married, or when you start your business, or you buy a new boat, or your first house, or you have your first child. Those are defining moments in your life. But defining moments in your leadership are the tough times. So the choices we make in those critical moments help to form us. And also they inform others about who we are. So John talks about in his book, he says, um, it's the choices that we make in times of crisis or challenge that defines and shapes our leadership for good or bad. We've, during this whole pandemic, a lot of governors, there was a lot of pressure on governors of different states. And some of them showed up for it and shined, and some of them didn't. And we all know who those governors are. I'm not going to, get into that, but I do want to make that example because how the governors, since the president gave the governors like that power to make those decisions, it really fell on them. And we saw some states that really struggled under the poor leadership of certain governors. So it really help to tell us what our leaders are made of. I talked to one business owner who was very discouraged because he got declined for the Paycheck Protection Program, and he didn't know why. And I said to him, I said, don't be discouraged. I said, fight for it. I know, find out, call the bank, find out why you were declined, see if you can appeal, see if maybe they made a mistake, but don't just lie down about it. You deserve that money. You should go after it and get it. So when you're a leader, when it's during tough times, it really has to show your character. You have to fight for what you believe in. So I recently watched that movie on September 11th. I watched that movie, Flight 93. And this is the flight that crashed in, I think, Pennsylvania. And it showed how the passengers got together to try to fight the hijackers. Even though they knew that their chances of survival were slim. I mean, they knew they were dying, basically, but they wanted to like fight, going down fighting. It was a defining moment worth fighting for. And in the movie, and there's a book about it, the leader said, let's roll, let's do this. And so defining moments really define your leadership. And so what that means is that, it really kind of, it shows what you're really made of. The most defining moments of your life are the times when you've gone through personal failures, when you've experienced suffering or tragedies, when someone is asking you to forgive them and you really don't want to, and you have to make a really unpleasant choice. I think a lot of business owners struggled with some of those unpleasant choices, having to, lay people off, or, really make a whole different type of business. Restaurants that were dine in only now had to go and start doing takeout, and it changed everything. So John says that defining moments, they put the spotlight on us, and our character isn't made during these times, it's just displayed. I mean, some leaders, some business owners, maybe they fell apart, maybe they just got discouraged, maybe they just gave up. So really, it's what do you have in you, and that shows up during the tough times. So you need to, solve problems. In order to gain influence with your staff, with your customers, you needed to see the problems and be able to solve them. And how you acted or failed to act during these times reflected on just how good of a leader you really are. If you weren't able to solve the problem, then it really just escalated and made things so much more worse. So solving problems is an issue that business owners are used to dealing with, but this was a new type of problem that no one dealt with before. So there was a huge learning curve. And sometimes this would have been the opportunity to maybe brainstorm with your employees or with your leadership team and say, what are we going to do here, guys? I'm at a loss. What are we going to do? Let's come up with some different types of ways that we can solve the problems. What are the problems and how are we going to solve them? So this required some thinking out of the box, some doing things that you've never done before. And so the leaders that were able to do that really shined in this case. So a lot of leaders and business owners, you have to have the willingness to change course. Throw out the business plan, because the business plan, your second quarter was just not going to be the same. It just wasn't. So you had to throw out the plan and go to plan B or C right now. He said, defining moments are intersections that give us an opportunity to turn, to change direction, to seek a new destination. I mean, think of how many changes that business owners had to do during the shutdown just to stay afloat. I mean, my yoga studio, I mean, that girl is a saint. She had to, change from in-person classes to online classes to live classes to recorded classes. Now they're having yoga classes outside, and they're still paying rent for studio space that they're not even using. It's just so awesome to see some people rise to the occasion and not give up, try to fix things that in a situation that most people would say are unfixable. I had one business owner, she said she was been in the daycare business for 30 years. She told me that with the COVID shutdown, it was a turning point in her life, and she decided that she wanted to do something different. She said, you know what? I think this is my time to do something different. So she's probably going to start a different kind of business. I'm not really sure what she's going to do, but she did say that, it was a pivotal point in her life that she was now going to do something different. So, people who got laid off from their jobs, so sometimes they're going to start a business now. Hey, I've always wanted to start a business. I don't have a job now. Let me do it. Or maybe they're going to use this time to go back to school and get more education, or maybe change careers into a different field, and they have to get more schooling for that. Um, and start a new career. So this COVID-19 time, this difficult time, has caused a lot of people to reflect on their lives and what they're doing, and think about maybe it's time to change course. And so that's something to do. So in dealing with changing, John suggests taking a look at how you've handled difficult situations in the past, or defining moments in the past. So really, um, taking a look at, the situation. What is the situation? Let's get down to the reality of the situation. What were my decisions or responses in the past? What did I do? How did I make the decision? How did I respond or not respond? And then what was the end result? Was I successful? Did I screw it up? So you need to look at how you've handled other times in your life when you've had difficult times, and how you've handled those situations, and really look back on how you did things in the past. And if you need to do something differently now is the time to make that decision. Maybe you need to ask for help. Maybe last time you didn't do it, and then you really, really failed miserably, but now this time you're going to ask for help. And who are those resources that you're going to go to ask for help? Or maybe you were wildly successful. Well, what did you do? Do the same thing now. Maybe it applies. Okay. So I titled this The Definition of Insanity. So you can finish it. You know what the end part is, right? The definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results, right? If you're doing the same thing and it's failing, you're not going to get different results. So you have to really evaluate what you've done. So how was your responses? Were they good? Were they bad? Was there a common thread in the poor ones? Get some feedback. See if there's a pattern. Sometimes we get into these patterns and it brings us down the same road, and it just goes nowhere. So decide now how you're going to fix it so you don't do it again. So you really need to, it takes some time to reflect on that and to think about, well, maybe I've been in this situation before and it didn't go so well. So what do I need to do differently to have a better outcome? So in order to do that, especially in handling criticism, so we'll kind of switch now to handling criticism in those defining moments, right? So you have to kind of know yourself. You have to kind of know, what your strengths and weaknesses are, and having a realistic view of yourself helps you to accept criticism. So let's say you're not a patient person. When you get criticized for that, you know that you need to change your behavior and become more patient in that situation. You need to really take a step back and say, okay, I'm not a patient person, but I've really got to try this time because I really got to get through this. So a lot of business owners were really criticized during this time for what they did or they weren't doing. During the reopening, customers were saying things. So it's really a tough time when you're criticized. Um, so another thing that you can do when you're being criticized and handling criticism is to, if the criticism is accurate, it is your responsibility to do something about it. So when somebody nails you for something that you know is a trigger for you, or that they press your buttons and you know that that's a sore spot for you, you need to, you need to own up to it. You need to take the high road and say, you know what, you're right. I'm not a patient person. I've got to do something about this. Let me look at my calendar. Let me see how I can make some space so that I can, some breathing room so that I can be patient and work with people, or do whatever you need to do. So one of the things you need to do is think about who is criticizing you, and do they know what they're talking about, right? Some people that criticize you don't really have the shouldn't it's not really, they have no business criticizing you because of they don't have the experience, they don't really know what they're talking about. So you're going to take their criticism and maybe not really listen to it because it's not really founded, it has no foundation. So you want to take a look at how was the criticism given. So was the person being judgmental, or were they speaking with kindness? There's a way. There's a diplomatic way. Look for the words they used and their tone of voice. Um, so that can tell you a lot. What kind of words are they using, and what does their voice sound like? And that can give you an inkling as to how the criticism was given. And then why was it given? Does the person have an agenda? Are they trying to help me, or are they trying to hurt me? Um, you really need to get get a handle on that. So the third step is really to accept yourself. So don't try to be someone that you are not. Being who you are is the first step on becoming better than you are. So John says, real confidence comes from knowing and accepting your strengths and limitations, in contrast to depending on affirmations from others. So, accepting yourself is a really important step. And then the last step is forgetting yourself. So, what does that mean? It basically means being more others focused, focusing on others and not so much defending yourself. Just get things done. So, you really want to, I feel like during the COVID-19 shutdown and reopening, the businesses that were secure, business owners were more concerned about their customers and their employees, and staying in business instead of the criticism. So really being concerned about others, other focused for a business owner is being focused on customers and employees. And when you focused on that part of it, then I think you couldn't really be criticized, because you were taking the high road. You really were making sure that your customers were staying safe, your employees were staying healthy, and that was really the best thing that you can do. So the right attitude towards criticism is not to be defensive. Maybe there's a grain of truth in there. Maybe what they're saying has some truth. And then making the necessary changes, as much as you can, and then take the high road, not to criticize back, or, just kind of lash out. I know this isn't a political talk, but if anybody watched the debate on Tuesday night, you saw, a really, I mean, I watched the whole thing, and my mouth was open the whole time. I was totally shocked at how this was playing out. So I think a lot of the leaders, you know, could take some criticism, and just, it could have been done a lot better. So so what John talks about here, he says that turbulence is a dangerous time, but the greatest danger is To Deny Reality. And that's by Peter Drucker. So I know we all want to deny reality sometimes. You all want to say, kind of push it aside or just say, it's not really happening, especially if it's something bad, right? Um, but I think a lot of people, they thought that this was going to go away soon. Like I remember in March, people will say, oh, by the summer it's going to be gone, or by, by fall, especially by September, everything will be fine. But here it is, we're 7 months later and, it's still with us. So I think those businesses that kind of focused on what to do right now and kind of help to stay in the moment instead of, being too future focused. If you just kind of dreamed about the future and you said, hey, everything's going to be fine, and things are going to go back to normal soon, they're kind of in trouble now. So you really had to take it day by day and say, what are we going to do now? I don't know what's going to happen tomorrow, but what are we going to do now? Um, I mean, you don't need people who will knock you down. You need people who are going to help you stay down to earth. Um, I happen to be a very optimistic person, but I need somebody in my life, like my husband, who is a realist and he will give me a strong dose of reality. And I need that because I know that I can get into my like Pollyanna attitude and say, everything's going to be fine. It's not fine. It's not. Christina, I'm telling you, it's not fine. And he has to tell me in a very strong way that you need to get down to earth and deal with the reality of it. And, everyone needs somebody in their lives to tell them not just what they want to hear, but what they need to hear. So, as a business leader, what do you need to hear right now? Not what you want to hear, but what do you need to hear to get down to reality? And that's why I think that show again, Undercover Boss, is so successful because these bosses, they had to go undercover to hear some of the harsh realities about their companies that nobody else close to them was going to tell them. And that's really, that's a shame. You need to have some people close to you that are going to give you the real deal, even though you don't want to hear it. So I'll just tell you a story. We had tickets to a hockey game on March 14th, right? The day before everything shut down. And they canceled then all the sports games. And, it took months to get the sports back. And it's still not the same. We don't have any fans. So, dealing with that reality, like my husband is a huge sports fan. So he was like devastated, and he's a realist, but he was totally knocked off his socks. It's like, what do you mean there's not going to be any sports? Um, so how do you really, find out what's real? So you have to define it, right? What is the reality of the situation? And not only do you have to define it, but you should ask others on your leadership team, guys and girls, is this the reality of the situation? Do you agree that this is what's going on here? Because I want to make sure that I'm right. I'm in the right mindset here. This is the reality of the situation. I think during the pandemic, a lot of people were in denial, right? A lot of people say, it's not so bad or whatever. But then when the shutdown occurred, it was like, wait a minute, my favorite stores are closed. You mean I can't go shopping now? No, you can't go shopping now. Everyone went to remote work environments. What do you mean I got to work from home? I've never done that before. So it was impossible to not feel the weight of the pandemic. So if you were not dealing with reality, you were in trouble. So the other thing is you really have to identify the issue. Identify the issue and you need to really understand the issues. Maybe and again, this could be in a group environment, with your staff, in a meeting, like, what are the issues here? And do I understand it enough? There was such a large learning curve here, nobody knew what to do. So not only did you have to identify the issue, but you had to understand it. And so that required maybe a little bit of research on your part, or maybe your staff delegating some of that information. Jenny, you go do this, Rob, you go do this, and report back to me, and let me know, what's really happening. And then the thing is, like, well, can it be fixed? Okay, so this is what the issues are, but can they be fixed? Can they be fixed? Is there an opportunity to fix these? And that's a really, really, big part of that is, can it be fixed? And then if they can be fixed, what are my options? Give me a few different things that we can do. And again, this is a great time to brainstorm with your leadership team or with your staff in general, thinking, what are we going to do here? What are the options? How do we fix this? And then you have to be committed, right? You've got to be committed first, because you're the leader. If you're not committed, your staff isn't going to be committed. You got to follow the game plan. All right, guys and girls, this is the plan. This is what we're going to do. These are the problems. This is how we're going to fix them. And this is how we're going to act on it. Let's do it. And then, are your followers going to follow you? Are they on board? Do they buy in with it? If we all agree, okay, well, now we have to wear masks, right? Are you guys all in agreement with that? Do you understand why we need to do this? Are you all on board? You have to make sure that your team is on board. They buy it. They're buying into your leadership. And you've really got to, have conversations to make sure everybody on the team is on the same mindset in the same place. Because if you've got people all over the place, that's going to be a problem, especially in the retail environment. If you had some employees that were wearing masks and others that weren't, that's an issue. I remember I went to the dentist, and I went to the dentist, and everybody was wearing like masks, and like the dentist had like the whole, the whole suit. I don't know what that's called, but the whole get up. And there was one person, a dental assistant, I guess, she wasn't even wearing a mask. And I was like, that was just weird. So obviously the dentist or the owner of the dental practice had not made it clear that everybody needs to be on board. Every single person on this staff needs to be on board. Everybody's got to be wearing a mask. If I see you without a mask, you're not, I'm going to tell you to put one on, and you got to put it on. So you got to make sure that everybody's on board. Okay. So let's talk a little bit about staff. Okay. A lot of layoffs have occurred, right? A lot of people are furloughed. A lot of people, maybe they're not going back. So this is the reality. People quit people, not companies. And that's the name of John's chapter in his book. He's got a whole chapter on that about employees. 65% of people leave companies because of their managers. I was like shocked at that. I was like, really? Because when you talk about, when you talk about, oh, I quit my job, people say they quit their job. They usually don't say, well, my boss was not good, so that's why I quit. They don't say that, but that's the reality of it. It could also be their coworkers. Hey, let's face it, if people aren't getting along with coworkers, it could also be that. But if 65% of people are leaving the company because of their managers, then something's got to change here. All right. So people quit people who devalue them, who treat them as just a number. People look for positive feedback and appreciation. So if leaders are untrustworthy, if they're inconsistent, so what that means is you say one thing, you do another, you don't walk your talk. So those are the types of problems that employees can see in their leadership, and makes it very uncomfortable place to work, because you just don't know, is my leader having a good day today? Are they going to be in a good mood today? Are they going to, say one thing and do another? So you kind of walk on eggshells, and that's a very difficult place for people to be. So if you're incompetent, so what that means, if you can't lead if you don't know, right? So leaders need to inspire confidence in their employees. If they can't do that if they're incompetent, right? If you yourself have not been trained properly as a leader, or if you don't know a lot, how are you going to inspire your employees, right? How are you going to say, look, guys, we're going to get through this. We're going to, this is what we're doing. And if you employees are looking for leaders that can inspire confidence in them, especially during the tough times. And if you can't do that, your people, they know that, they feel that. They're like, this guy doesn't know what, this girl doesn't know what she's doing. This guy doesn't know what he's doing. They're not going to follow you. And eventually they're going to lead because you don't know what you're doing. So if you don't know what you're doing, you've got to learn. You've got to find your own kind of training, your own kind of support system, your own kind of networking groups that help you to learn what get to know what you need to know. Um, People quit people who are insecure. So if you're on a power trip as a leader, you lead from a positional leadership. You don't train your employees. You want to become indispensable. Because you're fearful or you're jealousy, or if this person knows too much, it's gonna mean my job. So those insecurities, those show up, and your people know that you're like that, and they don't like leaders like that. So good employees want to be developed. They want to be trained. They want to have a clear career plan. Then they'll stick with you, But if you're insecure, if you don't want to train them, if you just want to keep all the power to yourself, they're not going to stay. They're just not. They're not. Um, so um, you want to make sure that you're training your people to reach their potential. And anytime someone who works for them rises too high a level, if you see them as a threat, that means that you're insecure. So rules for retention. So take responsibility for relationships with others. Get to know your employees other than just giving them a paycheck. If it's just, okay, they're here, they're employees, they're doing their job, it's great, but you don't know them, you have no idea, do they have a family? Do they have children? Do they have a dog? What do they like to do on their spare time? Get to know them. Get to see them as more than just your employee. Get to see them as a whole person who has a whole life. Do an exit interview. Try to find out, why they're leaving. If you have a high turnover rate, there is something wrong. Do the exit interview. I know that that's tough. I know that that's going to be tough because there's going to be some criticism there. There's going to be some things that you don't want to hear, but it's worth it because if you can make some changes and as a leader, you have the ability to do that, do it because employee turnover costs companies so much money in retraining and trying to find people, so try. It's much easier for businesses to retain their employees than to start to hire new ones. um, Put a high value on people that work for you. So again, who are these people? Don't just say, here's your paycheck and, have a good weekend. That's it. What are you doing this weekend? Hey, do you have a dog? I have a dog. What do you like to do in your spare time? Do you like sports? Do you like yoga? What do you like? Do you have a family? Do you have kids? Me too. So look at them in a little bit of a different light and try to create a connection with them. Be trustworthy. Again, can't really say that enough. um, so also have a positive emotional outlook creates a secure environment for people. If you are the type of leader that gets depressed, that gets angry, that gets discouraged, keep that to yourself. Employees want to work for leaders that have a positive emotional outlook. If you're in a depressed state, if you're discouraged, if you're down in the dumps, that's okay, but don't show that side to your employees. Employees need a leader that can put those types of negative emotions aside and show up in a good way. Guys, we're going to do this today. We're going to meet our sales goals. We're going to have a great time today. We're going to get lots of customers in the store. Rah, rah, rah. Employees need that. They don't, they understand that you're a human being, but if you have those types of emotional issues, you're going to have to deal with them on the outside, but don't show them to your employees. They need to feel secure in their environment. They need to feel that you're a leader that they can count on. So, in conclusion, John says, be thankful for the tough times. They're the reason that you're the leader. If everything was going well, then the people wouldn't need you. So, thank you so much for the opportunity to talk to you guys today. Again, I'm Christina from the Farmingdale SBDC. Thank you so much.
Christina, thank you. That I'm going to go back and I'm going to be looking at this video, I think, multiple times for myself. You touched on so many, many great points. A couple of things that I wrote down here, and I would think someone like yourself can probably help, is that, sometimes people do need a support group or like a business coach to go through the kind of things you talked about today. Because again, accountability and someone who's going to give them the feedback that they need to be a better leader, I think is so important.
Yeah, yeah, and all of our coaching is free. So we're a government agency. So whether you see us 1 time or 10 times or 100 times, every consultation is free. So
That's incredible.
yeah,
And again, I'm writing as you're speaking. I'm just writing things. And I think of, again, in hard times, if you squeeze a piece of fruit, what comes out of it, and how did we respond during these tough times, because what came out of you and how you responded to it probably tells you a lot about yourself that you can learn from. So I really, really enjoyed it. I really did. I
oh,
sat
thank
here
you.
and I took multiple notes, and like I said, I will go back and look at this. And again, we hope to have you again in the future as we introduce our podcasts down the road, and we'll talk about that at a later date. But thank you so much for today. I want to remind everybody again, Babylon is back. The Babylon Business Boot Camp, we have a couple of more. Next week, we're going to have Rob Fishman back from Sandler, and it's going to be about increasing revenue. So that's on October 6th. Again, babylonisback.com. We have this library of videos that, again, anything from business planning. And again, today, the topic, leading during difficult times. Christina, again, thank you so much. I hope everyone, take a look at the couple of additional dates and subjects that we will be talking about. But thank you so much. What a great, great day today. And like I said, this has helped me out personally, and I really appreciate it. So thank you.
Thank you. Glad to be here. Have a great day. Bye-bye.
Okay. Take care, everybody. Thank you.
Bye-bye.